coronavirus lockdown paved way for virtual learning environments. It also led to a growing exposure of children to digital and online world. For many children, internet is not only a place to attend school classes, do research or do school activity, but it is also a major part of their social life, especially at a time when there's a limited opportunity for socialization due to school closure. As children spend more and more time on internet without realizing the associated risks, it also makes them vulnerable to cyberbullying. Cyberbullying, the word, encapsulates a reality in virtual world. It can take place on social media, messaging platforms, gaming platforms, and mobile phones via text, emails. It is repeated behavior aimed at scaring, angering, harassing, threatening, or shaming those who are targeted. Cyberbullying can be done anonymously. According to a survey carried out by International Telecommunication Union onto social media platform Twitter and LinkedIn to ask parents on what worries them the most about their children being online, roughly 40% listed cyberbullying as the chief concern. To talk more about this issue, we are joined by Ms. Soledad Herrero, the Chief of Child Protection, UNICEF. Ma'am, how has the pandemic affected the children and also their protection risk?
Internet has become a lifeline to many of the children to continue their education and pursuing their aspirations in life. Sometimes also they've been a platform to reach and have access, for example, for counseling, for mental health, also for peer contact, right? Especially during those times where we've been experiencing lockdown. The expansion, therefore, of internet has boomed, and once again, so it has as well the associated risks, where children have been again exposed to isolation and anxiety. The chances of them being more vulnerable, right, to online predators has unavoidably increased. There are studies that point around a 95% increase in the use of in the online abuse. There's been also booming on child sexual materials produced by the teenagers themselves in the context of isolation and lack of contact. So all this has been, again, not a new factor, but definitely a factor that has been exponentially increased in the context of COVID-19. The one thing, Anshu, you allow me to also say that while a lot of times we focus on the risks of online world, and we do the right thing on that regard, we sometimes, don't look or pay attention of the importance as well of giving access to children and adolescents to the online world, and also the digital divide that, on the other hand, is also preventing children from marginalized communities, children from rural areas, girls as opposed to boys to have access to internet. So while the risks are there, it is also important that we ensure that children progressively have access to internet and become digital citizens as they also grow and get prepared to be productive members of society.
Now, what are the challenges that you usually face while addressing the issue?
One of the challenges is that we have a generation of children, young people that should become digital citizens, and that should be supported to have literacy, digital skills as well. But they don't have a support system of parents, sometimes teachers, that are catching up with the pace of progress that internet brings. So for these children, really, they really struggle, for obvious reasons, to cope with the benefits of internet while also addressing some of the risks. The other dimension of online protection risks that is extremely complex is the domain related to law enforcement and prosecution. It is extremely difficult, and one of the reasons why cybercrime thrives is because of the layers of protection and anonymity that the perpetrators have, right? And how difficult is the burden of proof. And still, there is a lot of challenges to have specialized units in the country, in India as well as globally, to be able to address some of these challenges. What I'll just end up highlighting vis-a-vis this question is that a lot of the uh, vulnerability and underlying causes of protection on online abuses are the same ones that offline. What I'm saying here is that if a child does not have all the access to basic needs, if the child does not enjoy a supporting environment, a family that is protective, if a child does not have an opportunity to talk about their own issues, if a boy or a girl feels isolated, if it's really coping with mental health issues, the chances of this child becoming much more vulnerable to predators online is going to be much higher. So we try sometimes this discussion and this debate about online safety is taken in isolation, and we should not look at it as a standing alone problem.
Has pandemic increased the number of cases of cyberbullying?
Yes, so cyberbullying is a real problem. It does exist, is among us, and again, cyberbullying is just is a bullying that takes place online, right? And I think that across the world, again, there's been an increased concern about bullying taking place, which is now also being expanded in the online world, also because of the reasons of disinhibition and capacity of offering a platform for being anonymous that I just mentioned before. And we conducted a study in 2019 through a platform you report, and what the young people told us is that 1 out of 3 adolescents and young people in the country have reported to experience cyberbullying. Perhaps what is most concerning actually is that more than half of them reported not to be aware of what are the services or what to do when cyberbullying happens. I think the most important factor to put forward for cyberbullying is first to help children, adolescents, young people to be able to be aware that this exists, so they can identify when they are actually being suffering on online or offline bullying. And if there are, adolescents, young people hearing us today, I always have a very easy advice. If you're feeling something is not right, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling, negative, if you're feeling shrink and diminished because of comments that are you're receiving online, there is something that is not right. And this is something that needs to be addressed and needs to be talked about. So the first and most basic advice will be talk about it with some adult that will walk you through what can be done on this regard.
Ma'am, what needs to be done and how important is the role of parents and caregivers in this scenario?
First of all, parents have a critical role to play. So it is very important that the rules of the game when it comes to internet use are clear, and it is very important that just as we should thrive and or should rather aim at building a trustable relationship with our children so they can share whenever something is a concern, something is not going well, we should also be able to connect and talk about their online experience, about their online life as well. It is also important that the entire environment that surrounds a child, a teenager, does take review and takes point of what is their behavior and whether they are displaying an unusual behavior. So for those that are listening to us, that are parents, if they realize that every time they, for example, go online on their devices, they want to be isolated, they go into the room, they close the door, they get nervous, or they feel really anxious or sad whenever they are on their online devices. That might be a sign that something might be happening. And of course, we all know how important it is to have a healthy relationship with our use of phone, internet, and other platforms. So to do that, we need to be role models. Moving on to other stakeholders, and something that perhaps we discussed today a bit less, the internet private companies have a huge role to play. So I think they've done important steps to improve some of the safeguards, but much more needs to be done from the perspective of ensuring that there are mechanisms that are child friendly and child adequate from the point of view of their own security, from the perspective of ensuring adequate monitoring mechanisms and zero tolerance when it comes to abuses and use of internet for damaging actions against children, to support evidence that really help us to understand what are the implications of the use of internet, social media, and others in the lives of children and adolescents, and be transparent about it. And yes, overall, really walk the talk when it comes to the safety and the protection of children. I did mention about the role that law enforcement agents have as well, so I will not dwell on that. And I just conclude by saying that, again, protecting children online, offline, it is everybody's business, and unless and until we make it everybody's business, we will still continue to face challenges on this front.
Thank you so much for giving your time.
Okay, thank you. All the best.
Cyberbullying can affect mentally, emotionally, and physically. For cyberbullying to stop, it is important to be identified, and reporting is a key. The victim of cyberbullying often find it difficult to ask for help. It is important for parents and teachers to educate children about various digital platforms being used by them, especially at a time when internet spaces are multiplying and data or privacy protection measures are inadequate.